Welcome to the Next Chapter Podcast. I am super excited to be here today with this very special guest. I've had the privilege of knowing Amy for 36 years, for her entire life, because she is my baby cousin. And so I am thrilled to be able to be here with her. I promised her that I will not share any of her childhood secrets or embarrass her. However, I do want to start the conversation, Amy, with the story of how I found out that you were alive. So can I start with that, Am? Do I have your consent?
Yeah, I don't think anything embarrassing happened on my first day of life.
Okay. So, Amy's mother, another childhood story. I happened to be born on the same day as her mom, my Auntie Barbara. So the day that Amy was born, we happened to be in Michigania, Michigan Alumni Family Camp. Yes, we're crazy U of M fans. And this was before cell phones. This was before, email or FaceTime or any of that. So I'm really dating myself also. And we received a phone call, and the phone call was intercepted by a receptionist at Camp Michigania who wrote down on a piece of paper that Amy Phyllis says hello. So my mom, Amy's Auntie Pammy, went to the office and found this piece of paper, and I have vivid memories of her running down the path, waving this piece of paper. Amy Phyllis says hello. Amy Phyllis says hello. And that is how I found out that my beautiful cousin Amy was born. And then we wanted to be able to contact your mom to find out more about the news and to hear all about it. And we search for a payphone to be able to call her. So, hello, Amy Phyllis. Welcome to the Next Chapter Podcast. And I'm excited for you to share your story. And we're dedicating this episode really to lessons that we've learned from our papa.
Yeah.
So welcome, Amy.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Super proud of my big cousin for this new adventure.
Thank you. And I know Papa is looking down on us too. So, also something really cool is that Amy and I are also named after our mom's mom, Phyllis Ann, and we both share the same initials and same middle name. So that's really super special also.
Yeah.
So, Amy, I will ask you one question about your childhood, and I don't think that this one's embarrassing, okay?
Okay.
So, to start, when you were a little girl, what did you dream of becoming?
Well, I grew up in California. I grew up in Los Angeles. So, probably like most little girls growing up in Los Angeles, I dreamt of being an actress. And how'd that pan out? You have not seen me. I don't have an agent. I'm not well. This might be my 15 minutes right here. No, I rode that though as long as I could. I even took maybe at like 13 and 14, I took pretty legitimate acting classes where they had like different talent agencies come to potentially sign like child actors. I didn't get signed. Spoiler alert.
Hey, that's something new. I didn't even know that. Isn't that so interesting that you can learn these? Maybe I did know that. And my 46-year-old's mind is, failing me at the moment.
I trained with like her claim to fame was Drew Barrymore.
Very cool.
Drew is doing better than I am.
So that's what you wanted to dream of. I can say that you are quite dramatic at times. And I'm sure that Matt, your husband, and your children and the rest of the family can agree. So acting wasn't, your day job. So where did your journey start?
So I grew up in Los Angeles, but I moved to Michigan to be closer to family, like your parents, and our grandparents. Late in high school, late in my teen years, but I stayed here for college. And I remember applying to colleges, and there's that box that says, what do you plan to study when you get to college? And undecided was an option, but in my 17-year-old wisdom filling out this application, I was like, no, you got to pick. You got to know what you're coming for. They won't accept you. And so there was this long drop down, and most of these things were things I probably had never even heard of at this point, coming from high school, going into college. So I picked English because I thought, I'm good at it. I had an aptitude for writing and reading, so I picked English. And really partway through my freshman year, they start pressuring you to pick a major, if you want to start applying to some of the more specialized schools, you needed to start getting on that track. And I panicked. I was like, oh God, I need to have a direction.
That's a lot of pressure for a young, right.
What do you know at 18? You think everything, but you really nothing.
Right.
And I knew English wasn't a career. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll be an English teacher. And then I quickly realized that meant high school, and I was not cut out to be a high school teacher. They would have eaten me alive. So I had worked at camps, I had babysat, I had worked with kids. And so I picked elementary education. And, in my freshman year, that was the track that I took. So
it's amazing how much, pressure, like I said, how much pressure someone has at such a young age to think that they have to determine what they want to do for the rest of their life. Because at that age, it's okay, rest of your life, that's a long time. So is that kind of how you felt?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, I was very determined, and it sounded fun. It sounded great to work with kids. I liked my coursework. It was interesting to me. But I remember, and I guess this is where, our grandfather, our papa, comes in, junior year of college. He was like, remember when you were an English major? He's like, you should get something more broad. It's like, you can always go back to school to be a teacher, but you want to leave your options open. He was always about, a plan B, knowing what your plan A is, and then always having your backup plan in the back of your mind. And really not boxing yourself into a corner. But at the point at which he said this, I was maybe a junior in college. I was boxed in. There was no going backwards. Now I'm why didn't I change my major and stay for a couple more years? That was silly. But then it seemed like I was just gonna derail my whole life path.
Right. So it's interesting how I know, I want to get all emotional, but I know that Papa is definitely watching us right now and smiling down. And when you're a child, or even as an adult, sometimes the advice that we get doesn't always resonate until later. But I can definitely say that both Amy and I really strongly believe in this, plan B and what our Papa had taught us. And it's something that I even work with my coaching clients on. We call it kind of the safety net plan. And it's always having, okay, your plan A, what's the best case scenario? Your plan B, what can you fall back on? And then the safety net, which is, okay, if all else, doesn't pan out, at least I'm satisfied with something. So Papa was, really ahead of time. Right. So you pursued teaching and in college, and then where did that kind of lead you?
Yeah. So I graduated, well, you've already said my age. So I graduated in 2008. And I graduated into kind of an economic downturn and a recession. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are graduating now that are graduating into a similar market, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And so I struggled to find a job, and but I was still really boxed into, I have this teaching degree in my hand. I worked really hard on it. I'm going to be a teacher, whatever I have to do to get there. So for the first year and a half, I did different things. I worked for a daycare. I was an assistant director at a daycare. I did long-term subbing. So anything like kind of in and around teaching, but hadn't really been given my opportunity to have like my own classroom yet. And so that was probably, I think like a year and a half to 2 years where I was really just trying to stay relevant in teaching, but I wasn't actually teaching or hadn't been granted my first classroom. And then I did. I taught first and second grade for about 6 years, maybe a little bit, maybe 7 years. I really did love it. I really loved it. My first few years, I worked for a school. A lot of the people were my age. It was a new charter school that had just opened up. So it was kind of like college, the next generation. Made some really close friends because we were all kind of in it together, starting out our career together. As I'm sure anybody who is currently an educator or has ever been in education knows, it's not a 9-to-5 job. You take a lot of your day with you, whether it's physically like grading papers or lesson planning in your own time or buying supplies with your own money. And also just kind of like you take it home with you emotionally as well. Can't forget, there are definitely certain kids in my mind that I still think about to this day. Teacher burnout is a real thing. I think, we've become more aware of it in the last few years, but really, those first few years I was going into school before the sun came up and leaving after the sun went down. I was not seeing a lot of daylight. That was great in the beginning because it's, that's just, what we did. And, I didn't have any responsibilities at home other than a dog. It was fine. But then, as I got older, obviously I learned tips and things that helped me work smarter, not harder. But the work is still there. There were still, 36 and 7-year-olds that were very dependent on me. I was getting very burnt out. And by the time I had my first son, I was very burnt out and also really missing my kid at home. So that was my first kind of moment where I was like, is this for me? Do I see myself retiring from a classroom? More power to the people out there that do it. I think that they're amazing. I just kind of had a revelation where I was like, I don't know that I envision that being where I see myself in 20, 30 years.
Well, I appreciate that you took it wasn't just a job for you, that this was a career that you were dedicating so much time and energy and passion towards the children that were under your guidance. And so it makes sense that there is this feeling of burnout, that how much more can I give to these children, to this classroom, especially when you end up having your own child and then your priorities shift. And I do want to point out that Amy's firstborn, my second cousin, is named after our papa. So that's really special too. So as you kind of had this revelation, what was kind of going through your mind? You realized that this isn't something that you can continue to sustain. You want to be at home with Ethan and be able to dedicate, time to him. So what happened next?
Yeah. So I still had that sort of boxed in feeling. Definitely at this point, our papa had passed away, but his words were very relevant in my mind about, what was your plan B? And I quite frankly didn't have one. So as much as I knew that I didn't envision myself, retiring out of a classroom in 20 or 30 years, I also didn't know what else that meant. If not
Right.
that, then what? And so at one point I thought maybe I would go into like educational leadership. And as you know, you find out like, again, education is one of those fields where you have to work more to advance, and you're not really compensated for it in any way, other than hopefully down the road that it'll, you know, the payoff will be there, that you'll get, you know, a promotional opportunity. But, you know, that seemed long and far away. And in the meantime, you know, I was, my heart was not in it the same way. You know, I was there every day. I really was giving it my all, but I knew that my heart was somewhere else. But I also didn't know where else to go and what else to do. And my husband has a career where he works really odd hours. And not a lot of flexibility. And being a teacher didn't offer a lot of flexibility either. You know, if our son got sick or, you know, something happened, there was, and it happened from September to June. We were really in a tricky position to try and figure out what to do and how to navigate, you know, parenting. And we were both at this point kind of burning our candles at both ends to keep everything up at home and keep up with our really demanding jobs. And so I started to kind of think about what else I could do, like what else I could take my educational degree to do, because again, I still felt very boxed in by this piece of paper that I had. And a friend approached me. Her husband worked in a similar field to mine, so she understood the scheduling. And she said, I work in talent acquisition. She's like, I work from an office a few days a week and I can work remotely. If my kids are sick, I can be home. If they have something going on at their school, I can work from home and pop over to their school and still be back online. And she's like, there's definitely an element of flexibility. Would you ever be interested? We're hiring. I had to then look up talent acquisition, figure out exactly what that meant. And I said, sure. So I took the interview, and quite frankly, I think I nailed the interview because I didn't have all my eggs in this basket. I kind of went in figuring they're not going to want me. I have no experience in this. But I think because of that, I didn't have the anxiety and the stress and the pressure. You know, I ended up getting the job. My first manager, he said to me, we're not building rockets here. You can do this. And he was right. So it was February, it was mid-year. I felt terrible leaving a classroom of kids mid-year. It really stuck with me, but the rest of the world doesn't work on a September to June schedule. Like, it just doesn't work. So I knew if I didn't take this opportunity, I didn't know if another one would come up at a time of year that was more convenient. So I put in my notice. Thankfully, there was somebody who had left and was eager to come back. So she took my classroom, and the parents knew her and were very happy. So it assuaged my guilt a little bit about leaving. But ultimately, you know, it was just better for my family. And, you know, we all have priorities. And, you know, being a full-time working woman was important to me, but being the kind of mom that I wanted to be and being more present and not feeling, you know, stress and forcing him to go to school when he wasn't 100% or anything like that was also very important to me. And this job afforded that. That's
beautiful. There are so many different things that I wanted to point out. The fact that there's so much pressure, that you mentioned that there's, you know, this piece of paper, the certificate that you earned and that you felt boxed in. So many people feel that they have to, their next chapter has to be tied to whatever it was that they did previously, that they spent so much time doing that, and that if they don't choose something within that same category, so to speak, that it's wasted. And I'm here to tell you, and you told us, plain and simple, that is not true. That a lot of the skills that you had from teaching, your communication skills, your leadership skills, all those skills are ones that you carry with you forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really important. The other thing is that I wanted to point out is that while you said we both know the importance of having a plan B and you weren't really sure what your plan B was, but that you also, you took a flyer, that your friend had a conversation with you. You were open to trying something new, and look what beautiful thing came from it, that you found something that works for you, works for your priorities, works for your values, aligns with what you want to do and makes you happy. So I guess the advice kind of to listeners is to take those conversations, right, Amy? Like if someone says something, so can you kind of speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I mean, I was open to the possibility. That was a big, important lesson that I don't even know I was learning myself at the time, was just that I didn't say no to anything. I was open to the possibility. And from there, I built a career on that one opportunity that someone was willing to give me. I didn't have the background or the training that some people did. But I worked hard to learn things, learned from other people, took people in as resources. Anytime someone said, do you want to sit in on this conversation? Do you want to go to this training? Do you want to do that? I never said no, because I was really open to just the possibility. And as much as I wished I had had a structured plan B in place, I was sort of developing mine on the fly. Was like, if I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do it really, really well. So, but ultimately that came from just wanting to be open to any possibilities that were given to me. And so I started out as a talent coordinator. So essentially I was scheduling interviews, running background checks, kind of doing the more administrative pieces that help people get hired. But I did a lot of like research and learning and shadowing of people. And I then parlayed that into becoming a recruiter. So that's where I'm at today. I work for a financial technology company that is based in helping people build credit. So I still feel like I'm kind of pursuing the same mission that I had initially when I went into teaching, which was to help people. This is just in a totally different way. But I'm helping to hire the people that are building out the platforms and the infrastructure that are helping just regular people build up credit, which is very important, and having financial stability. So, and all of that just came from one conversation that I was willing to take.
Right. So conversations are so important. And that is something that Papa was amazing at, that he always had a conversation with someone. He, when we were sitting down at restaurants, he would always ask before the waiter, waitress, person that was helping us could take our order. He would always ask, what's your name? And wanted to develop a rapport with someone. And conversations, again, are so important. Something else that...
And would introduce the rest of the table, too.
Oh, of course. I forgot about that. For sure. And it's all about building relationships and being open and learning and having conversations. And something else that I remember, as far as from an interview standpoint, that he always said, not even just an interview, but just in general, that you can always tell kind of like the credibility of someone by their well-polished nails and their polished shoes. So you always got to be ready. You never know, who you're going to meet and what opportunities kind of come your way. And I know we had a conversation about a little bit about the challenges around and the pressure around finding a career, finding something to do that makes you happy and also balances your life at home. Because I know we've talked about Ethan, but you have two other beautiful children at home as well. I'm so lucky that I have three little baby cousins. One who is, recently born, baby Jack.
Yeah,
So can you
9 months.
kind of talk about how balancing everything has happened?
Yeah, no, I definitely, I wear a lot of hats on a day-to-day basis. Um, and like I said, I'm fortunate that I work for a company that really practices what they preach in terms of, work-life balance and the importance of, kind of the home team. Like you
Mm-hmm.
are valuable at work, but you also have to feel valuable at home. And they really emphasize the importance of that. And so I, work from home. I'm 100% remote. I feel very fulfilled career wise because it was important to me. Number one, financially, my family, needs me to work a full-time job, but also I really wanted to. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
have something for myself, something that I was really good at, and something that I could feel, fulfilled in. But I also wanted to be the kind of mom that I wanted to be. I had a stay-at-home mom. She was at field trips and, school things and birthdays and all of those things. And I loved that. But I also had this need and this want for myself in terms of a career. And so it was like, how do I do both? How do I be the kind of mom that I want to be that can be at everything and also be successful in my career and have this piece that's just for me to feel good at and have some, financial independence and
Right,
success
for
in
sure.
terms of that as well. So there's just definitely a lot of balancing going on. Now that I have 3 kids, yep, so you're right. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an 8-month-old. So my hands are really, really full. Um, but I'm really fortunate, but not every day is easy. Some days it's a true juggling act. How to figure out how to have meetings. My oldest was sick this week, so navigating. Thankfully, I was able to be home. It wasn't an issue, but at the same time, I still had a kid to take care of. So there's always a lot of juggling that's going on, and not every day is easy and sunshine and roses. But I do feel really lucky that I have that balance and that I've been able to find it. Because I think if I had stayed in teaching, I don't know that everything would feel as balanced. I think one thing or the other would have felt like I was, the scales would always have been tipped in one direction or the other. And that wouldn't have been fair either to my family or to my students that were counting on me as well.
And to yourself.
And to myself, yes.
Right. And that's something
Yeah.
that we forget, that people sometimes feel as though that they're trapped, that there's no way out, and to be able to find this balance. And the fact that you mentioned it, that some days are easier than others, of course, that is life. There's speed bumps in the road. We need to take detours, but as Papa always said, also, where there's a will, there's a way. He also said, and an A, because he wanted to encourage us to do well in school. But where there's a will, there's a way. And if you believe in yourself, you build your support system, you take these conversations that come your way, that you are able to have this kind of balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as we kind of come to the close of our conversation, of course, I could talk to you all day. I could, divulge again some of those childhood secrets, but I promised you I absolutely would not. The only thing I will say is that Amy used to call me Annie instead of Andrea, but that was super cute. But so as we close kind of this conversation, what one gem would you like to leave the listeners with?
I think really the overarching theme of everything that I've experienced so far, and I'm sure I have a lot more to experience, is I guess two part. Number one, I wish I could go back and tell younger me the importance of a plan B. And I wish I would have had a roadmap, so that when I was questioning my path, I didn't feel trapped.
Mm-hmm.
But in light of that not making sense to 18 or 20-year-old Amy, I think the other piece is just that openness to any possibility. When you really just kind of open your mind and your heart in a lot of ways to different possibilities, sometimes you find pieces of yourself you didn't even know were there.
Right.
I became, I think, pretty good at what I do career wise. And I worked hard to, like I said, learn and gain whatever knowledge I could. But I also think it was just kind of my openness to this new possibility that I never really saw coming. And I can't tell you how many people laugh at me when they're like, you went from teaching to corporate. How did you do that? And I'm like, it's a long story with a very long journey, that I don't think is over yet, but it really just boils down to the fact that I was just open to possibilities and I was willing to kind of bet on myself.
Which is just beautiful. And the fact that people even laugh at that you can do that is those that don't have kind of the openness to do it. And so I think that those are great gems. And that I know, as I'm getting teary, that Papa and Honey are watching us right now and cheering us both along our paths as we write the different chapters in our lives, and recognizing the importance of always having a plan. And the fact that it wasn't always all written out, that's okay too. But just even having that first page open, knowing that there's more to write and that there are ways to figure out how to write those next pages. So I will leave the listeners with how do you want to write your next page? Amy provided so many beautiful tools that you can take with you as you write your next chapter in life. So thank you so much, Amy, to my beautiful cousin, for sitting down with me, having this conversation, and sharing all these gems that you have and that Papa has instilled in both of us. So thank you so much, Amy. Love
Thank
you.
you. Love you.